I said to Chris Brancato, the writer, the creator of the show, I said, I still feel bad. I'm putting the hit out on her. I'm a human being. But I really do start crying. I'm like, I really felt bad that I was going to kill her.
That is the life. You just described in a moment how I love you, but I wish you weren't making me do this to you.
This is Inside the Life with Giovanni and Dutch, produced by the Mob Museum, presented by Levy Online and Levy Production Group. Giovanni, Rocco, and Dutch McAlpin are former police and federal task force operatives. They infiltrated drug cartels, outlaw motorcycle groups, and the mafia. Now, they share their stories, along with others who have gone inside the life.
So I want to thank you for being here, Kathrine.
Thank you for having me.
From an understanding growing up in East Harlem, was that pivotal, or was that something that was advantageous when you began your career as an actress?
I mean, of course it would affect me. And I bring everything that I saw and the behaviors of, especially the women.
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes think of different women that I remember, women from my neighborhood, East Harlem, their characteristics,
Mm-hmm.
to roles that I play. Like I think of a certain person and I go, oh, that's who she is. Like Olympia Gigante on The Godfather of Harlem, I knew a woman from East Harlem who had a lower voice. She would talk like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was Olympia Gigante for me. That's what I decided.
Right.
I don't even know if that's how she spoke. I did some research, but I could never find her speaking anywhere. So I didn't know her voice. So I don't know why. I just connected it with this woman that I knew.
Well,
we're not saying names today.
No,
so.
no, we're not dropping names. We're not going to say
dropping
anything.
names.
We can make reference, but we won't drop names.
No.
Before we skip past that, because you guys
Yeah.
are both from New York and you both understand these neighborhoods, can you kind of talk to me and the other members of the audience that are like, what's East Harlem like growing up for you? What's that look like, an image
It
of
looked
that?
like the melting pot of what everybody thinks New York City is. It was Puerto Rican, German, Irish, Black. Italians dominated the neighborhood from 121st Street down to a hun. And a real Harlemite says a hun. They don't say 100.
Yeah.
In case, you're doing your research and you need that real accent.
Right.
You don't say 100, you say a hun. Pleasant Avenue, where Rayos are, the famous Rayos, all the way up to I would say Lexington Avenue.
Right.
And within that little pocket, it was magical. It was a magical, fun, extremely, I felt, for me, I could only talk through my perspective, loving place. And you grow up living in buildings, but back in the day, in my time in the 60s, 70s, you might as well say you live in a gigantic one-family house.
Yeah.
Because every door is open and you're allowed to go in every door. And every door was welcoming. Love all the way.
Right.
And it was a happy environment. I remember this guy, Jimmy Bones, said to me one time, he said, I was a waitress and I was complaining one day. And he goes, sweetheart, two things that I always loved that he said. He said, if money can fix it, it's not a problem.
Right.
I live by that now.
Yeah.
Whatever my biggest problem is, I go, can money fix it? Yeah, then it's not really a problem.
Yeah.
And then he said, the reason why Harlem was great is because the togetherness and people were poor and they didn't have a lot of money. So he says, Famina brings togetherness.
Mm-hmm.
That community could sound like
Yeah.
a small town in the Midwest.
Yes.
You're talking about open doors and families.
Yes.
People taking care of each other.
Mhm.
There's no difference.
Yeah.
I mean, except where the location is.
Well, we
in
talked
love,
about it. Yeah.
in love and the way you act from love and family.
Mm-hmm.
So the one thing you can say, and what you do see in all the mob movies, is family is the strongest tie. Everything's about the family, right? Tony Soprano, everything's about the family.
Sure.
Everything is about the family.
Mm-hmm.
The Godfather, the family, and the love of the family. And in Harlem, that's what it was. It was a lot of togetherness, a lot of, I'm broke, I have a stick of butter, here's a pound of spaghetti, just to get you by,
Yeah.
Well,
knock
right.
on somebody's door, like that next door neighbor that gives you a cup of sugar,
Yeah.
you got food You were fed.
You never went
Nobody
without.
went really hungry.
No, you didn't go without. And again, I grew up in that same environment. It didn't matter what borough you were in. I think the way you describe it is the way I grew up. That's the way I describe it in the book, and that's the way I've always portrayed it to Dutch and anybody who grew up around us. You relied, no matter culturally. My mom would give us a pair of pants that we had for school and they needed to be hemmed. They needed to be altered. She sent us down the street to a Russian or a Polish girl or a German lady who didn't speak English. You went in there, you stood on the box, you got your pants hemmed, and you went home.
That's right.
And what you're describing is everything in that first film we were in, A Bronx Tale.
Yeah.
Right? And I think everything you're describing is what I was drawn to personally. Your character in that movie, yours specifically, was the leaning out the window, the yelling down the street,
Yeah.
the calling. You were my mom, you were my aunt, you were so many people's. Like, it was relatable, right? Because that's where I grew up.
And that all stems from Italy, because when I watch Italian films, they're not going to come, and in Harlem too. If you lived on the 7th floor or the 5th floor, and I lived on the 5th floor in the next building attached to you, we're not going to go all the way downstairs
No.
and then come up. We're going to go over the roof.
No, you just tell
And if I got to get something from my mother, I'm going to scream up, "Bah!"
Yep,
and
yep.
she's going to throw it down.
Yep.
So all that screaming comes from Naples.
Yeah.
Every Italian movie you see, they're screaming out the windows.
We had a little tiny window out there. We lived in a 2-story walk up. You know, my mom would scream out the back window, and it would go a relay. And then it would get to the lady down the street, Mrs. Kelly, and then Mrs. Kelly would scream to the projects, and then the projects would scream to the park. Get your ass home, your mother wants you. You know, and that was that
now
was your
if you
pagers,
yell
that
in
was
the
your cell
street, they're
phone.
like, the people would complain. Back then, everybody was screaming out the windows.
And again, that being your first big role with Robert De Niro in that movie, in A Bronx Tale. Again, was it natural? Was there a lot of worries for you? Because you didn't go to acting school in the beginning, right?
No. I came off the street and I landed on his lap, because really that's my audition. I ended up on his lap in the audition, and it was an incredible experience. The story's too long, I won't tell it, but I'll make a long story short. I came off the street. I was a closet case actress. I went on an open call for my son, for the boy, the role of C. While I was there, I saw the women coming in for the wife. Did not know it was Robert De Niro's wife. The casting director came out with my son. I said, could I go in for whatever role these women are here for? Because I look like them, walk like them, talk like them.
Right.
She said, that's not an open call. If we don't find, if that's SAG, you got to be in SAG. I wasn't in SAG. She goes, but call me in the morning. If we don't find the SAG actress today, tomorrow, that's going to become an open call. My son's role was an open cattle call. I called her in the morning. I said, did you find it? She said, no, come in. Went in. 2 days later, put me on tape. 2 days later, got a call. Ended up downtown and in Tribeca.
Right.
And auditioned with Jane Rosenthal and Jazz and De Niro. Went back and forth 20 times. Went through the mill to get this role. Beat out 2,500 girls. And De Niro let me know that.
Mm-hmm.
He said, you know, you beat out 2,500 girls. I want you to know, you should know that.
Right.
And when I started it, to go back to, do I bring what I know, my background, to a role, that was a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, you got this role because you were yourself.
Mhm.
You didn't overact. You weren't reaching.
Mm-hmm.
You were just being you. You were being yourself. So I brought myself and also everything that I am and everything that I grew
You
up
brought that
around.
neighborhood you
Oh, you
just
brought East
described.
Brought the
Right.
whole neighborhood.
Yeah,
I
East
brought every
Harlem.
Hey.
woman yelling out those windows.
Did your
with
son get
me
the role?
into that room?
Right.
Did your son get his role?
No, he didn't care. He just
Was he
wanted
excited
to
about
stay
his
home
mom?
from school.
Yeah.
Was he happy his mom got the role?
Yes,
Has
he was very
been
happy.
supportive of that?
Yeah.
So that drive and that taking no for an answer, where does that come from? I mean, obviously both parents, but what's strong? Because your mom was an artist, right? From what I remember.
My
doing
mother
the
was
research.
a singer, an unbelievable singer,
Right.
And a poet,
Okay.
a wonderful poet.
So where does that drive come from? You think like that? Is it East Harlem that created that drive in you to take no for an answer and keep going back for those
I
parts?
was born with a straight face, say that I was born an artist. I don't even want to say an actor,
Mhm.
because I feel that I was born an artist. And an artist to me, it's not just like I paint, I act, whatever it is. I'm always trying to create. I think artists for me is not even labeling one thing, or you're an artist, do you play an instrument? That I think an artist is what's in your soul.
Mhm.
And then from the soul, it comes out of whatever it is that you're going to do. The drive, the not caring about the nose, it didn't ever bring me down, because it's not like I'm going for a yes, but I'm just not really even going for a yes or a no, or you got it or you don't. I'm going for, I'm coming in to express myself, and I'm good right there.
Yeah.
And if I get it, that's cherry on top.
Okay.
That's the artist in me.
And you described bringing the neighborhood in, and you said you got the part because you were genuine. Robert De Niro said you beat out 2,500
Yeah.
women because you were genuine.
Yeah.
And now you're continuing through your career. Has it been hard to maintain that genuineness? You know what I mean? Like,
No.
have you never had a hard time
No.
letting go of
No.
the things that drove you there?
No, because anytime I try to overact, I see it on the camera, or I'm reaching to try to do something. It's like I got egg on my face. And then I go,
Yeah.
breathe, stop, just be. They want you. Just be. You're enough.
Mhm.
I'm enough. I don't need to add on. I'm enough.
Right.
And I don't mean that in an egotistical way. I just mean if it's that role,
Yeah.
I'm enough. Now, do I do research and add little things to each character and give maybe Olympia this voice, or maybe she smokes constantly, Anna Genovese maybe was more flirtatious when she spoke. There's little things that I bring to each character. Yeah, but I mostly try to be Kathrine meets Anna, they shake hands and they go into the room together.
Right.
Giovanni and I worked undercover, and along our career paths, we tried to maintain that same genuineness. Now, I'm not trying to compare them as the same, but
yeah.
we're not acting. But I found that we were most comfortable and most confident if we just stuck to our roots and stuck to ourselves. But like you said, do some research and try to maybe adapt it a little bit, but just stay basically
but
genuine. You're more likable.
But if you screw up, you're gonna blow your cover.
We don't
If
get
you
a
start
second
acting
take.
like something else,
Right.
they're gonna go, "This guy's fake." You have to stay genuine, or I'm gonna sniff it out that you're a cop
Right.
or an
Yeah,
undercover
right.
thing.
That's right.
If you're trying to reach and try
You can't fake it.
to be me or in my culture, I'm gonna know you're fake.
Yeah.
Well, again, I'm not giving up tradecraft, but it's like our life was a certain amount of acting to a point. A lot of people say, wow, undercovers, you're good actors, but we're not, right? We bring a lot of authenticity to it. We have to, because you can't. One guy told me one time when I was training early on, you can't F up you. And I didn't know what that meant. But then I realized, stop trying to change my name. Stop trying to change my accent. I am who I am. Just go in there culturally. That's when my undercover career, with him especially, he would call me up. He's not going to be an Italian guy from New York. He's not going to make like he's grew up with me, but
Yeah.
he can say, I got a guy, let me get him on the
Yeah.
phone. And the minute he gets on the phone with me and I turn on my accent and I turn it up to 100,
Yeah.
that's it. Drop
Yeah.
a couple of forget about it and
Yeah,
whatnot.
yeah,
and then
yeah.
boom. And then on the other side of the coin, when I need somebody, like, look, this guy's got a little bit of an accent. He's not from my neighborhood. There's that
Right.
trust. That's that authenticity you bring. That's what everybody on Inside the Life, that's what the purpose of the show is, to show the law enforcement side, the underworld side, but then there's that pop culture side that folks like, you from the movies and TV, the way you portray it, the authenticity you bring to that role
Right.
is that's where the connection, I think.
Right.
And again, in both sides. But we don't get 2 takes. We get 1 take.
Yeah.
We only get it right or you're done.
Or it's
Yeah,
Kevin's kidding.
yeah. There were many times it was almost, And again, to transition into the next area is you all did such a great job in the Sopranos series. The whole genius of Tony Soprano being a mob boss and going to a
Yeah,
psychologist. And again,
That's what made the show. I think I always say, and I've said it before, my 2 favorite characters were James and Lorraine. And I think Lorraine Bracco's, who I love very much, Lorraine Bracco, Dr. Melfi, and Tony Soprano, if that element was not on the show, it would just be another mafia show. The reason, because he could have even said, it's not just that he went to a therapist. Say Lorraine wasn't there and he goes, I'm going to a therapist. And it's like he kept going to a therapist, but you didn't see it.
Right.
Being in the sessions, we got to be the fly on the wall inside his brain. And we got to see what makes him tick. We got to see why he does what he does. We got to see the most lovable sides of him. We got to see the good side of Tony Soprano. And we got to see that he was a major victim of circumstance, because we got to see him talk about his father and his mother and how they penalized him. And she was a big part of his anger issues and his anxiety. And the father inducting him into the mafia as a little boy.
Yeah.
And man up, that whole macho thing going on. And where we saw his struggles with the good and evil. He was on a slippery slope, and he took that road. And the reason you fall in love with him is because we got to see inside what he had on the back burner, and he was always constantly juggling. Like I always say, he had many different hats. I have to be a good husband. I have to be a good father. I have to take my kid to college. I have to be that guy. I have to be this guy to my Uncle June. And I have to be this person to my mother and my sister. And being the audience, seeing that, we really got to understand an unbelievably complex character and fall in love with this guy.
Right.
And he was a good guy. To me, I saw more good than I did evil. That's what he showed, more good than evil for me. And I got to love him.
And your role in that, and how I see it as being so, like, it held so much of that show together, your character. And the restaurant and Artie Bucco, maybe for me, because it's something I grew up with. I worked in restaurants as a kid, and I know that so many of those women that you portrayed in the series, being Artie's wife, it was different, right? To stand up to the mob and be anti-mafia when the mob is sitting in your restaurant and you're portraying that.
Right.
That you did such a great job with that character. I think that you let everybody into that world, into the underworld, from the eyes of somebody who didn't respect.
I guess if I were to describe Charmaine Bucco, I would say Charmaine Bucco was the voice of reason.
Yeah.
And I would also say that I don't want to say she wore the pants.
Yeah.
She drove the car. She
Yeah.
told Artie where we're going to go. You
Right.
know, I don't like to say I wore the pants because then that sounds too like
No,
I think it makes
bully
it
spot on.
masculine or
No.
something.
No, we dealt with women in these roles a lot. Like,
Yeah.
although you're playing a role, like, there's a lot of times maybe she wasn't telling us or bossing us or doing anything, but she's running the show in a way.
Yeah.
When you're done with this, make sure you get the kids and
Yeah.
don't do anything to get yourself thrown locked up. You got to do
Or I don't like them.
Yeah.
I don't like those people. Yeah,
Yeah.
they could be the ones to be like, I don't trust this
I had-
Giovanni guy.
Yeah.
They're paying attention to everything. The women are paying
Yeah,
attention to everything.
of course. On the show, Charmaine grew up around the mob and grew up in this town with them and knew Tony. And the backstory I gave myself, because I used to feel so bad because I loved Jimmy and I was close with Jimmy. We were all very close, like a
Right.
real true family.
Mhm.
We would always laugh before a take. And I'd say, oh God, I can't stand that. I got to yell. Because I love them so much. It was kind of funny to
Yeah.
us behind the scenes. And I had to give her a backstory so that I can be kind of mean to, not like Tony Soprano, is that when I tell Edie I slept with Tony,
Yep.
I gave myself the backstory of, and I told this to David Chase, that there's a scene where I say, I could have had him, I slept with him, but it wasn't for me. In my mind, my backstory was, I could have had him, but when I slept with him, he left me. I
Mhm.
didn't leave him. He was for me.
Right.
So that's my vendetta. And I always say, I could have had him, but I didn't want him.
Right.
No, you could have had him, but he left you.
Yeah.
So then that was my driving force of why I didn't like him.
Mhm.
So that I could do these scenes, whatever scene I had where Tony Soprano. It wasn't just the mob, because I grew up around the mob and they come in my restaurant.
Mhm.
So that's the reason I gave myself, is that he left me. I didn't leave him.
But that was a little bit of a gangster move you did there with Edie Falco.
That was a mic drop.
That was it really was. That was a gangster move, just to let her know. And the
Yeah.
way you did it and the delivery was, it's great insight, because I
Yeah.
always wondered.
Yeah, because when she's belittling me with,
Yeah.
oh, it's a cute little house, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
it's just reminding me to go with that backstory. I could have had what you had,
hmm
but he left me, so I didn't get it. Now I'm stuck with this shit.
Right.
So, then I got her.
Yeah. As far as your acting career, was it The Sopranos and the constant the repetitions with everybody on set and that family component? Because you didn't have any official training up to that point, right?
No, I did. When I did A Bronx Tale, De Niro had put me in an acting class. This woman, Sheila Gray, I stayed with her for a while. And then from there, I went to a guy named Tommy Waits, studied with him for 5 years. Another woman, Nina Morano, I went with her. So I did
Okay,
get
you did.
training then.
Okay.
Now I have training, so, it helped me.
Yeah.
Training is It's important. You need to know your craft.
Right. Especially when you're in a room with heavy hitters like that. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, you're in a room. Well,
Yeah.
Sopranos was more. That was a lot of door openers for a lot of actors.
Well,
actors and
sometimes you need
actresses.
You need training a lot when your instincts don't kick in.
Right.
Then you need your tools.
Hmm.
So a lot of things your instincts will kick in because we're talking about. That's what you bring your history from. But sometimes when you go in for something that's not that, I don't just do mafia movies.
Yeah.
You need training, so you need a bag of tools. You
Right.
know.
You could play lots of different roles. You wouldn't just have to play a mafia role or any gangster role at all. I mean, working
I
undercover,
appreciate
I would have gone anywhere with you. I think you could have dominated the room pretty easily.
Wow.
Easily.
That's serious.
Thank you. Well, I mean, did any of you guys see Euphoria? That
The
was
series,
kind of
right?
badass. That
Yeah.
was good. She was another one who was a good bad guy. She was a good bad girl. Like she was a boss bitch, but also had a heart of gold, you know? She was this drug dealer who probably grew up on the streets and gets her grandson
Mhm.
out of a dance club. What do you call a strip joint?
Strip club, yeah.
And because the father's kind of abusing this kid and goes in, pulls the kid out. She's like kind of a hero.
Yeah.
And sort of like a Charles Bronson,
Yeah.
the female Charles Bronson, you know, and I grab this kid and you get the way Sam Levinson brilliantly wrote it. You get to see the soft side of her behind closed doors, but to the world, she puts that hard mask on so she can survive. It's the survival mask. And I love that character so much. So I appreciate you saying that because I would like to play more roles like that. You know, and then she adopts this kid that she gets in a drug deal. The mother says, "Hold my kid. I'm going to go get the money." And she never comes back. And immediately, it's a baby. He's like a year old. And she's immediately drawn to this kid, this baby, and she's like, if she doesn't come back by this time, I'm keeping this fucking kid. And that's the way she talked, cursed like a truck driver. And she ends up raising this kid. Ashtray was the character. So that character actually went viral. And I love the fact, I don't look at it, the way I look at that, I don't look at it like, oh, I did such a good job in acting. People gravitate towards the good bad guy or the bad good guy. I don't know how it goes. But she went viral. People dressed like me. They came out with this blue suit. That color blue, I wore this blue suit, badass blue suit. It became the color of like the whole year it was trending in fashion.
My daughter's 25 now, and when I said you were going to be on the show, I was talking about all the things you'd done. She knew you from that.
Yeah.
That's what she's like. I don't know about the rest, but she's like, that's what she knew you from.
Yeah.
She talks specifically about that.
So,
But that's a unique trade craft to have. You can be, and again, I've noticed it in many of your roles where you could be very soft and caring, but then pivot on a dime.
Yeah.
And be your worst. I'll be your worst nightmare. You know.
I want to play more soft and caring.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
I think soft and caring can still be part of your personality, though. Like, you got a badass lady, like, personality about you, but I think it's a very motherly or, what do you want to call it? Nurturing instinct. You have a protective instinct.
Yeah.
On the street,
I did
I bet you took care of people.
I am. I'm a caretaker. I'm a giver, not a taker. In the movie I just did, it's a movie that'll be coming out in March 2025. Barry Levinson directed it. De Niro's in it. He's playing two people. He's playing Vito Genovese and Frank Costello.
Right.
I'm married to him as Vito Genovese. I'm Anna Genovese. I kept trying to play her a little softer. And Barry's like, no, that's not her. You got to go in. I was like, I started playing her really soft in a couple of scenes. And he goes, no. And I'm like, but why would you like her? You have to see the soft side. He said, we already have like 6 soft scenes. Now you got to go in with the hard scenes.
Right.
Just the 2 sides to her.
Yeah.
So I have more of a good time playing the softer side because I guess maybe that's more who I am. And it's hard for me to play the harder side because that's really not me. It's so opposite of me. So when people say, oh, you're playing you, no, anybody who really knows me, I may sound like I'm that because it's a New York thing, but my heart is softer than what I play.
I think a lot of that is portrayed in what I see in Harlem, Godfather of Harlem.
Olympia
Yeah,
Gigante.
with Olympia and the daughter and the
I
dynamics
pulled it
between
there
the two.
too when I put the hit out on her.
Yeah.
I said to Chris Brancato, the writer, the creator of the show, I said, I don't care how hard she is, and I don't even give a shit if she's the one putting the hit out on her. I still feel bad. I'm putting the hit out on her. I'm a human being. I'm killing her, but I feel bad about
Right.
it.
Yeah.
So at that door, I kind of like, I really started crying. And when I say I'll never put a hand on you again, that's the night I'm leaving her and I'm going out so that the hit guy can come in and kill her.
Yeah.
But I really do start crying. I'm like, I'll never put a hand on you. Look, I'm getting teared up now.
Mhm.
I really felt bad that I was going to kill her. And
That's
they
the
were like,
life.
you know what? Go with that. It was more interesting.
But that's
That's
the life.
I can't believe how impacting that is for you.
Yeah.
That's
That's the
amazing.
life, though. That is the life. You just described in a moment how in a split second things change, things pivot and change. I
Yeah.
love you, but I wish you weren't making me do this to you.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
really started crying. Like Kathrine met Olympia, shook hands, and then just started crying and said, Olympia, you don't want to do this. But but Olympia said, but I'm going to do it.
Right.
It just came to me out of nowhere. And when I was walking, when they said action and I was behind the door and I had to walk in and she was sitting there with the records, I saw my own daughter on
Yeah.
the floor.
You know, we brought Vincent Pastore, Big Pussy, on here.
Vinny's like my brother.
Of course. Then he was talking about when he had to put the wire on for the show. And he said he started sweating. He's like, I can't believe I got to wear this wire.
Yeah.
It's just for the show, you know?
Yeah.
And he talks about the same thing, how much it impacted him.
Like The Irishman, that
Yeah.
back seat, the scene in the back seat where you sat there smoking. You
Ma-
didn't have a
Marty
lot of
gave
dialogue.
Marty gave me a note because when I first started to do it, I came at it a little differently. And then Marty gave me one note, and I was like, okay, love it. That's what I love to do. He said to me, they're a quiet couple. He's a quiet guy. He's quiet, and you're quiet. And I said, I love it. I love it. So that just gave me something to work off of for that character. All the women that I have ever played, ever, come from somebody that I know, a little gesture, a little thing.
Yes.
I take a little thing and then I run with it. And with her, I felt like she was the most kind of, I want to use the word mature character that I've ever played. And I also mean that in a way of personality trait. I felt like Charmaine was like, Arthur, like she was younger
Yeah.
and she was like, wah, 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 like a whiny teenager. Where in The Irishman, she was very mature, quiet, almost like well-to-do. She was
Very
like,
much so,
They say
right.
she's Italian royalty. So I kind of played her. My head was always up this way. Like I gave her the trait of she's always looking down at everyone. Not snobby. She just thinks she's Italian royalty.
I love
So
that.
she just looked at you. She looked at her face. If you notice, I always had my head up this way. So
And I was gonna
I
pull
gave
on that.
myself this little thing.
Even the way you blew the cigarette out, right? That's
Yeah, it was just very.
And again, we're trained on human instinct and human interaction. That's a whole tradecraft for
to
us.
read human behavior.
Yes. So when you, and again, to your point,
Yeah.
when you put your chin up and take that was the character's defining moment.
Yeah.
Just the way you would pucker up your lips. That's what I paid
Yeah.
attention to of all your different characters.
Yeah.
Like that character specifically, the way
Yeah.
she sat in the back seat reminded me of
I'm
mine.
glad that you noticed that.
Yeah, very much so. But that brings me into
She had good posture too.
very good posture. But she was a force to be reckoned with because, hey, pull his car over. You're talking to Buffalino who's a shot caller.
Yeah.
And they're the muscle, right? Any good man in this world. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what you do for a living. You're as good. You're only as good as the woman who stands alongside of you.
Yeah.
In your first movie, Bronx Tale, you're with Robert De Niro, and you're going to be in a new movie, Alto Knights, with Robert De Niro as well, right?
Yes.
Does it feel good? Does it come first circle? Well, I know you've been in a lot of movies with him, but
Yes. It's always good to work with him because I feel more comfortable working with him than I do anybody. He brings an immense calmness. Like he's so calm and chill that all my nerves disappear and melt away. So I feel like he brings out the best in me. And this movie, in particular, I think that he's going to be a tour de force. I'll use that word because
Really?
he's playing two people and he is on his A game. I mean, I'm sitting across from him in these scenes and it's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable. So his performances are unbelievable in this movie, I think.
Look forward
So
to
it's
seeing
really
it.
nice working with him again. I always love. I hope he feels the same about me. I think that's why he keeps choosing
Yeah,
me.
you keep
I would
coming
think
back.
You know, and
but
he
you guys
chooses-
build that relationship over
when
time.
I did this, when I came in on the Bernie Madoff thing, he said to me when we walked in, we had a reading of it, and he says, I told Barry to call you in, and that always makes me feel
Wow.
good, that I'm doing the right thing, and that I know. It
Earlier
makes you
on the
feel good
show, he
makes
reminded
you
you.
feel confident as an actor.
Yeah. You said the very first time he reminded you beat out 2,500 women.
Yeah.
Like he saw that in you the first time. Now it
Yeah.
just carries on and on. I mean,
Yeah.
you earned it for sure.
Yeah.
At the museum, we talked a lot about people's perception of the mob and how it's affected them. There's a display here at the Mob Museum called The Mob and Pop Culture, which is probably what most people's exposure, if they didn't grow up in communities like you guys did with this culture around, they've only seen the TV shows, the movies, and the fantasized versions of the mob, because the top 3 floors, the next few floors of the Mob Museum are murder and mayhem and extortion and killing and the other things, kind of dispelling that pop culture popularity a little bit. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's a lot of great artifacts here and a lot of factually based stuff. So come to the Mob Museum, check out the Mob Museum, look at all the displays. It
It's
is
not even
amazing.
just the Italian culture; it's the different cultures, right?
Yeah.
Like not just everybody thinks mafia and they think the Godfather, they think Italian America.
Italian.
There's so many cultures here that the museum focuses on. We're heavy on the Italian culture because that's what iconic. That's iconic to everybody. It's everybody's memory back in the days, and from Capone, which is
Sure.
amazing. When you go upstairs, they actually have one of Capone's guns here. It's pretty cool.
Any upcoming projects or anything you want to discuss or cover?
I actually wrote 7 vignettes, short stories of my childhood, my perspective in growing up in Harlem. And I'm talking to somebody right now who wants to help me put it together and put it out there and make it a series. Definitely on board for it, read it and was fascinated by it. And so I want to do that. And I do want to direct. Even if I get to direct the pilot, the first episode, I would like to direct that. And I have directed 2 short films.
Okay, very cool.
Kathrine, thank you so much for coming on Inside the Life with Giovanni and I. It's been a real pleasure. You, from the second you walked in a room before we even started filming, like you have a really great big personality. You stand out in the room, and you made this interview exciting and fun. And it's been a real pleasure. And thank you so much for coming to the Mob Museum and being here in person.
Thank
and
you.
being on the show Inside the Life.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having me.
For behind-the-scenes photos, merchandise, and exclusive content, visit InsideTheLife.org. Rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get podcasts.